Well, hello, everybody. I'm Chris Brackett. You're watching Land Life. Land Life podcast is brought to you by Herman Brothers Realty. It's where I'm a broker in Illinois, and I just love land. I love selling land. I love working on land. I love consulting all over the country. Actually, I just got off the computer just now with a gentleman from out of state that was looking to tweak a property in Illinois. And it was the best hour that I think somebody in that position that's 8 hours away could do. Hasn't really been on the property, knew enough about the property to buy it, and then just really wanted to back up what he thought he already knew about how Illinois deer moved. And first, we established where the big pieces of ag were, where the deer were going to flow out from this timber, his timber, and out into the big fields where they wanted to socialize and where they wanted to feed what I call the hard crops, which are like corn and beans. Even if they're like not standing, that are food plots, they're where the deer are going to go, and they're going to socialize. And the bucks are going to do buck things, and the does are going to do doe things, and that's where they're going to do the rutting behavior really at night. I mean, they're nocturnal creatures, right? So I love land, and I don't know, man. It's just something special about today. You know, I've taken a little time off, not really for any other thing or any other reason than just to kind of refocus on where everything's going. I know that this podcast is where I'm supposed to be at. I know that doing other podcasts talking about a broken world where men chase whitetails and they get their lives out of whack because of the things and the wants that they, think they need, and they don't really need them. They need the gospel. Most people know God, and they know Yahweh, they know Creator. They were raised Catholic or Methodist or something that has more ritualistic understandings and undertones than to just know Jesus Christ as a Savior. And so I talked to a lot of men over Christmas break. I'm going to call it Christmas break. I've been sitting down on the sidelines for Christmas. I told you, Merry Christmas, that big bucks were going to show up till about the 26th. And a lot of really big deer did. The full moon was on the 26th. We watched a lot of big deer die. If you were on Instagram or social media at all, you saw a lot of big deer die right there around Christmas. And that was that full moon, that 48 hours before the full moon that I love so much. A lot of big deer showed up. If I had a tag left, I'd have killed a big one. And just here recently in the last 3 or 4 days, you're watching a lot of big deer all of a sudden make it back to food that they haven't been on all season. Some of them all season long. And one of the big deer, we call him Long Duck Dong from 16 Candles. My wife named him because why not? Because it's a hilarious name. Hilarious. It's a character. If you haven't seen 16 Candles, it's a B movie from the 80s, and it's hilarious. And we were trying to come up with a name for this deer, and that's what she laughed and said it. And if you know anything about my wife, you know that that's completely out of context for her. So it makes it fun to name a deer and chase a deer. He's a giant 8-pointer, 160-inch 8-pointer. He's got a little 4, so he's got 9, maybe 10 points, but he's an absolute mega giant at 6 years old. And he's on the top of the hit list for next year. Didn't really go after him this year because I was tagged out by November 4th, but I've been on a Christmas break. I think in life, sometimes you have to just take a break for yourself. What really happened is that my whole family got the vid. They got sick. I went to kind of just clear my head and went to the farm, stayed in my Airbnb out there, and I spent time getting rest, getting really good sleep, really writing down the goals that we have for the year. We have quite a few clients that we need to one, get them on the computer. Went out and got this new computer to make sure that it was fast enough to be able to do the online stuff I need and the editing and all this production. So this just made our job a lot easier. Structuring the property pre-consults, which is online where we go over the property, that's been a real bear for me as a lot of the computers I had, man, were just dinosaurs, and they weren't working up to capabilities that I wanted. So we went ahead and upgraded, big upgrade, really fast computers, does everything that I wanted. Just tested it out on a client today, like I was telling you about his property in Illinois. We established today where to put the food plots, got into the 3D rendering drawings of it, and we're able to show the flow and how they come out of the bottoms, and going in and saying, hey, listen, I recommend getting a dozer in here, getting somebody that can clear the plots. I have people, if you don't find them, he happens to be within 2 hours of me, so we have all the access to be able to create the roads, and I guess hire people, help you find the right people. So this just worked out. And man, this new computer, this thing is so fast, and I think you just got to have the right production and the right level of equipment. And my stuff was a little old, just like me. It was the best of the best at the time, but not recently. It's just everything's so fast. Computers are fast. The little computer you hold in your phone, the little iPhone, so fast. And so I wanted to be Johnny on the spot when it came to doing the online consults, which is where you and I actually use the the video camera and the screen share, and this is where we get to look at each other, have a great conversation. Imagine being able to, and I would have loved this. This is one of the reasons I created it. Was I would have loved to ask the people that still know more than me. I would every day pay somebody to teach me knowledge to get me further along, so I could have a face-to-face conversation, and I can go on and I can figure stuff out faster. And that's what we do on a lot of properties. And this gentleman didn't need any help planting or really doing anything but looking at, how does Illinois work? How is the pressure? Do you hunt the bottoms? Do you hunt the top? Do you hunt the 3/4 sides of the hillside? Where would you create a brand new food plot? What would you put in there? Those are the things we went over today. And in the last, I think the last 2 weeks that we haven't aired a Land Life podcast, I really think it was about the direction. If you guys hadn't heard Huntr podcast with Jeremy and Jared, I did a tell-all story where I told about the poaching incident in Indiana, how it all worked, who was involved, who really stole the footage, how I knew it didn't matter about what I did, that it was very much an agenda. And I knew immediately that it didn't matter about pleading my case to either the world or the judge or the what was it, federal state's attorney, or however you call that. I knew real quick it wasn't about just me. I knew it was about the agenda of that I was going to be made an example of. And so I very fastly, or in no waste of time, pled guilty, because I was guilty, but I wasn't really guilty of everything that they pile on you. I had never been in trouble with the law before. So I didn't really know that they're going to charge you with all of this to make sure one thing sticks. So I knew real quick that I better just, stop running, and I better just get down to brass tacks. I wanted to just tell them, I invited them in my house. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I was charged with the Lacey Act violations. When was that? 7-8 years ago. But it happened, the violation happened over 10 years ago. And so all this stuff had been in my past, but a lot of people they wanted answers. So I figured, instead of getting on here on my platform and having a very skewed, maybe the look of how I tell the story, I thought it was great to get with a company or a group of people that, one, wanted to know the answers. Number two, that would be younger than me, that would be able to have a voice for the people asking the questions. And so that's why I went with the Huntr podcast. If you don't know who they are, look them up on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, same places we are with the Land Life podcast. And it's Huntr, Huntr podcast. Check them out. It was an episode from a couple weeks ago, dropped right before Christmas. Once that aired, it did, 50,000 viewed on YouTube. And I felt like it needed, I felt like I needed to take a break after I got all that off my chest. And there was really no drive to do a new podcast here with you until I felt the need to. And it really kind of got to a place where I felt like I needed a rest. I had been 10 years of me holding not really the secret, but really not sharing what went on for my own reasons, for my own health, my own mental health. And I let that just kind of soak for the last couple of weeks. And if you didn't check it out, go ahead and go check it out. It's 3 hours long. And I felt like it was a really good way to do it, a really good way to talk about it. And in that, I rested. I rested through Christmas. My aunts were sick with the vid. My mom was sick with the vid. My wife was sick with the vid. And I just stayed away. And I really just kind of stayed away in the situation where I felt like it was a great time to take some time to myself, because life gets really wild. And since I had to sit in a timeout, I had to sit out for 30 months and I had to pay $30,000. And I actually had to sit out while I was in bond. And that meant that I couldn't have any weapons, so I couldn't hunt either. So I spent pretty much 3 years not being able to hunt or have a weapon. I did my time. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about what I thought Psalms 23 was, fearing no evil, my old television show on Outdoor Channel. And really, I believe it was more about laying near the still water, which it also talks about in that verse. And it was really about being still. And so it reminded me about the time when I got in trouble. And for a year, I didn't have anything. I literally had to sell things to survive. I had no friend, not very many friends around. The people that were around, I don't even need to say their name. They know who they were, and they were here for me. A lot of people weren't. A lot of people have then reached out since I've done this podcast. A lot of people felt like maybe they gave me a raw deal or they weren't there for me. And that means a lot. But they have to understand that it's not about that relationship for me. If you left that situation, you had two reasons to leave that situation. One, you didn't know what to say to one of the toughest guys that you knew, right? Which I would just, let's be honest, I'm built a little different. I don't lose. I either learn or I win. And if I learn, that just means I'm going to get up again, right? It's not a matter of if something happens to you. It's a matter of what you do when you get knocked down, when something happens, when you screw up, when you do something bad or make a mistake or hurt somebody. It's not what you do when that happened, because it's going to happen. You're human. It's a matter of what you do after it happens. And for me, it was very public, and it was very much a lot of hatred and very much a lot of people disappointed. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to go listen to the Huntr podcast. And the people that were there for me, there was a lot of people in my family. My sister didn't know what to say or do. My father didn't know what to say or do. My mom didn't know what to say or do except to say she loved me. I had a couple friends come alongside me and, just help me get through daily struggles in life, because I couldn't work. I was under bond, these big charges, and publicly everything that I had ever done, I had got taken away from me, or allowed to be taken away from me, because people meant it for bad, God meant it for good. And he knew that I was strong enough to make it through all this, but I only made it through this by reading the gospel and learning the gospel. I'd already given my life to Christ before this, but to know the gospel and to know what it says about that this world isn't my home has really spoke to the mission in my life at 46 years old, going forward in my life with gray hair, gray beard, having this podcast room and creating this from nothing, continuing to keep building it. we're right now in the middle of, do we offer sponsorship? So if you're out there and you want to be a part of this mission, the mission is going to be probably allowing 7 to 10 sponsors to be a part of this, partners, immediately. Like immediately, I want to take this into something bigger. Everybody's craving some type of Chris Brackett, Aerofliction, Fear No Evil show. And I have this land life vision to not only do 2 of these podcasts a week, but to continue to grow it. We have a new couch right here. We have a new setup. This will be a place where guests will come and we'll get into different conversations and let this thing evolve, tell about different products that are out there. And it's not always going to be about what are the deer doing, but that's a really good subject when what are the deer doing is during the season, because everybody wants to know what deer are doing. And if they don't want to know what deer are doing, they probably aren't watching or listening to the wrong podcast. And right now the deer are doing exactly what they're supposed to. They are finally into a winter feeding situation where they are now out and about looking for the radishes and like the Brassica blends like Gold Fever from White Gold. They're out there crushing them. They're eating the oats and winter rye and winter wheat. They're eating those grain tops right now because they're still green and growing. Clover is absolutely fire. If you got a beautiful clover field like a White Gold, like Clover Rush field, those are my favorites. They're crushing them. They're not hitting the alfalfa. Alfalfa is kind of over its peak, but this clover is still growing. That temperature is that dirt is probably only 50 something degrees. And every time it gets a little bit of snow or rain or something, everything that's out there that's still growing, like a perennial, like a clover, a white clover, a clover rush, it's still getting a little bit of growth. And these deer are absolutely crushing it. I got 30, 40 deer in most of my fields right now going to the standing beans. They're eating all the sorghum. They are eating the clover and headed out to the standing beans. Is pretty much standard right now what's going on. I still have a lot of skinny looking bucks. I think December was, whether we saw it on trail camera or not, I believe that December was really tough for some of these bucks. Surviving, breeding some of these fawns early, breeding some of these does that were left over that didn't get bred the first round. I believe December was really, really tough for a lot of these big bucks. I just had my buddy Sam from Kentucky, shout out to Sam. He just was texting a second ago going, man, I think that soybeans are the way to go. And Sam, I've always said that soybeans are the best source of a hard, what I call a hard crop for deer. But I always bring them through a clover, through an alfalfa and a clover, through maybe some brassicas out to the hard crop, out to the beans, corn on the other side. I don't plant full corn because those beans are so powerful. And some years they'll go all corn. And a year like this year, I just got done telling them, hey man, don't worry about just the corn plot you planted. Because he was like, I don't think the deer hit any of the corn like they hit the soybeans last year. And I said, whoa, hold on a second. You cannot compare last year, 2022, to 2023 season. Those are 2 separate universes, alternate universes. This year is an anomaly. If you don't know what an anomaly means, an anomaly is something that is unlike anything else. This year, you need to chalk it up to, hey, Mama said there'd be days like this. Mama said there'd be years like this. And this year, you need to identify and even maybe go back through your trail cam pictures. Take time at your desk. It might be not as cool as the desk that Danny made me in the room that we built, but you can go to your desk and I would write this year down. The year that the full moons ended at the end of October 28th, November 29th, December 26th, when those full moons are shifting to the end of the months, it seems to be a trend that those moon cycles really affect. And old Captain Red Moon and the people that talk about the red moons and all this stuff, I think they're going to know more in depth than me, but I just know on how years go. And when those happen, you have these full months of just really this year we have very, very stale year. What I mean by stale is that the wind in Illinois, and then, you know, you can kind of gauge. I've always said that, remember, Illinois is kind of like your good gauge in the middle. It's not North Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas. It's not Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania. It's kind of right in the middle, right? So it's a good place to where going around the Great Lakes, all the fronts they kind of build from Illinois. You're either days after Illinois or you're days in front of Illinois. So in Illinois, we had very stale systems. That meant these systems that normally built out west. I feel like a weatherman right now. Over here to the left, we've got these nice little blue clouds now. So you've got these clouds that come in from the west, come across Iowa, come across Minnesota, and down through. And then normally they tackle Illinois, and our state will split. And a lot of stuff up north will get the ice and the snow. A lot of stuff that we'll get kind of in the middle here. We'll get a lot of frosty nastiness, a lot of rains, southern Illinois. And you'll see this come through, and then you'll see it go around the Great Lakes and then up into New York, and they'll normally get the snow and some of Pennsylvania, and then you'll see the front, and it'll come down, and it'll go like North Carolina, that. So if you're listening to this podcast and you hear about the weather systems and things, if you want kind of a precursor to what your weather is going to look like, start studying what and how it comes across the Midwest, through Iowa, through Illinois. And if we're getting it a day or so ahead of you, find out what your deer start doing preliminary when you get these fronts. A lot of times, remember, the front will suck into, you know, if this is Illinois and this is Indiana over here and this is Iowa, when this front's coming through, this front is, think of it as a big tidal wave. Okay. And to get the stuff for the wave, it has to suck the kind of pre-wave in, and then when the front or the wave gets here, right, it kind of sucks into the system, and then the wave gets here and falls over. You guys are listening out there. What I'm talking about is, imagine waves on an ocean where the tide goes back and then the wave crashes over, and that's the same part as a front. A lot of times you're going to see a very unstable system with one, there either isn't a front coming at all, and it's just stale, which means no wind, 5-mile-an-hour wind, very stale. The fish, the deer, the critters, they don't want to move. If you get this front coming, it's kind of an activate for critters to move or feed or want to go and search. And, you know, sometimes it's for animals that have homes and houses and dens and things they create. Sometimes they get feisty and they have to build those up, and squirrels making nests and things. But in the whitetail world, it's about, okay, what do I need for food? And then is everybody going to the grocery store at once and going out into the world and, you know, feeding on the clover that they need and feeding out into the beans that they need and going, okay, well, I want some candy, I want some corn. And they go out into the corn. What are they feeding? Are they feeding before that front gets here? Sometimes. Sometimes you'll find a lot of does and fawns that will feed as maybe a day before that wind starts sucking east. You'll just have this kind of funny feeling where you're like, ooh, there's a storm brewing. I know it. I've heard the weatherman talk about the storm brewing out west. And a lot of times you'll see deer get on their feet and you'll think, oh, it's time to hunt. There's a front coming. And I can tell you that on two hands, the individuals I've talked to this week that went back and listened to the podcast and said, so you talk, Chris, they're like, Chris, you talk a lot about hunting after the front is already here. You don't talk a lot about when the front gets here. And so what that means is I hear a lot of people, my friend Doug, um, guy Brian that I talked to on the phone, a couple other people via Facebook Messenger and consults. They were all talking about how they'll go brave and look forward to that snow and that rain and that wind and all of this front getting here and pounding them. And I said, that's great. Sometimes you'll get a big deer that really needs food or feels froggy because of that front and moves in that front and in that nasty weather. But the big buck killers know. The big buck killers know that once the front gets here, whether that's snow, cold, wind, rain, whatever that is, you let that pound the Midwest or your state or your area for 2 days, and those deer will do exactly what me and my wife do as gray-haired people. Me gray hair, she still looks like she's 16 years old. I met her when she was 16 and we were friends, and she still looks the dang same. So me, I'm the one with the stress and the white beard. But me being the leader of the family, I will just shut the family down. I will just say, nope, we're just going to stay in. We've got enough deer in the freezer. We've got enough TV we pay for. We can just stay in. I'll do work on the computer. And for me, I stay in while that's pounding and snowing and blowing and freezing, and while everything is pounding on us, and I will say, no, we're going to stay in. Just like the bigger, older, more mature deer, they'll do the same thing. They'll just sit there and they will withstand that for 2 or 3 days. And they may get up a little bit, but they'll do it at dark. And they'll browse a little bit. And they'll socialize, get up and move around a little bit. And then after about 2 or 3 days, you'll see it in ducks and geese. Ask Rick Ham. We talk about this all the time. There will come a warm up. Normally, your fronts are coming out of the west. It means your big west winds are coming. A lot of the stuff when it gets cold is coming from North Dakota and Minnesota and down into Illinois. And this is the same whether it's in the south or whatever. When this cold gets here, it's normally coming out of that northwest blowing, just crushing, blowing, getting, coming into the system. And you just sit there like if you got stuck outside in a cold, just ice chilling wind. You're just going to sit there and take it. Boy, when that stuff's over, and you get that warm up out of the south, little southwest, your front's already here, pressure's rising, clouds part, big sun shining, weather's broke, the birds that are here, the birds are singing, the pressure's up 30 point whatever and rising, the barometer's rising, the skies have opened up, the sun's glazing down. Those are the days that any duck hunter knows you're killing big old greenhead mallards. And the big white-tailed deer, the big boys are going to be the first. They're feeling froggy. They know they got to eat. They just withstood the storm for 2 or 3 days, and they're coming to the food. They're coming to the field, and they may be the first one on the field. And that's the day that you put all the chips. You put all the chips on the food plot and all the preparation that you've done, because Big Boy's going to walk on that high pressure, sunny day when he's squinting, walking out into that field. And you're going to kill him early. You're going to kill him because that's the day he's walking. So I think that if anything, this podcast can change people's life in more of a strategic way of how they hunt, more in a strategic way of how they go through life. Christmas is hard, man. I'll tell you what, COVID was probably one of the craziest things. I hadn't had COVID till about a day before Christmas. I actually was so mentally drained that I could not see through it. It was scary. It was a very dark place. Like I had, my mom's doing great, but man, she's got the cancer, and but she's doing she's doing awesome. She's doing awesome. But just the pressure of worrying about family, especially somebody like your mom, and then worrying about all the pressures of the family sin, my sister and my relationship, the hurt, the not really, Christmas is one of those times where it should be the most chill, relaxed thing. And if you have that in your life, man, you need to cherish it, because most of us have a life that is not that way. Everything is stressful. I mean, even in me putting out this podcast, I know that there's people going to be like, he talks too slow. He's too fat. He doesn't know what he's talking about deer. There's all these pitfalls so that your mind can go there. And for me, as we approach Christmas, I know two things above all over. My father died and was in the hospital with a stroke that we literally had to pull the plug on him, making that decision and reliving that every Christmas. My dad and my wife's dad died within 2 days of each other, like December 26th and December 28th, I think. And both of our fathers, were found on the floor. And it's very traumatizing, post-traumatic stress for me and my wife. Without having kids, it's tough to get up in the morning, some mornings, and when life's rocking you. And so as Christmas approaches, we know that that's there. We know that our mothers are getting older. We know that the dynamics with my sister and her family are not always healthy. And I'm in survive mode, which is just like nobody talk to anybody. Everybody just, what food do you want? I don't care if we put up a tree. I don't need any presents. And that's me trying to just make it through. I think that's how a lot of us males are. And then I try to communicate with my wife. And then it becomes and gets really very stressful, because she's trying to put on these generational things of a lot of them are sinful, because a lot of them are about creature comforts, and a lot of them are about traditions, and the traditions make things crazy because they have to be a certain way. This is the way we've always done it. It does not say that in the Bible. I think we forget everything when it comes to Christmas, and just how calm and loving it should be, and the trees should be second, and the presents should be second, and the good food should be, hey, if the guys like grilling, then we're going with grilling, because we're going to go outside and there's going to be no drama. We're going to grill the steaks. Everybody's going to eat like kings. We're going to put the prime rib on the Traeger. We're going to let that go. And that's what I would love Christmas to be at my house, but that's just not where we're at right now. So the anxiety of healthy, chill Christmas, put me mentally over the edge as I had COVID, the days approaching, and it made my life not worth living. It made it so bad, not because I hurt, but I know that those people with the Chinese virus, made in China, that made that sucker, whatever they did, it was meant as a nerve. It was meant as a mental middle finger. It made me not be able to think. It made me not be able to feel. It made me not be able to see happiness. I was so depressed and sad for 3 or 4 days that I would say, besides, I don't know why you would want to live. If you were put on a ventilator, and I lost a few friends that were put on ventilator. If you were put on a ventilator with COVID, I don't know if you would want to survive, especially alone in that hospital when it first came out. Because it was so mentally depressing that I have one guy that I text today that we were going to cancel a consult because I literally told him I couldn't think through it. This before I knew that I had it. we actually tested for it. It wasn't just a cold, right? I'm not around anybody. It was definitely something that I knew that I needed to test because I needed to know why I was feeling a certain way. Like, did I need to go talk to somebody or what was going on? And I tested for it and I thought, man, this is different than every other, Harrisburg crud or, SHOT Show, ATA show, whatever stuff that I had ever contracted. This was different. This was a mental thing. So I guess what I'm saying is, if that happened to you, like, you just need to be aware. Like, for me, I'm talking about it, but what am I going to be aware about was, one, I text my guy today. I said, I owe you a phone call. I did not mean to be as crabby or as, I can send you your money back. I just don't know if I can, I can't even, like, I couldn't even think right now about this subject because I was so depressed. And I just said, hey, we can just cancel it. I'll just send your money back. I texted him today and I just said, hey, I don't know what I was going through, but I apologize. Listen, I'll leave tomorrow to come to your place. I will make it worth it. But man, I don't know what it did to me mentally. And so Christmas was hard. It was a blur. I didn't even remember it. We made it through it. Mom was good. Everybody's good. And then my mom actually had a reboot of COVID and was actually taking the ER and stuff. And so it's been a rough week. And now here we are in 2024. I had a lot of people this week that I spent time with that were literally going, listen, man, 2024 is your year. And I'm like, look, man, I'm healthy. I'm happy. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm selling land, tweaking people's farms. I'm helping them understand more about big whitetails and what to do. I have my, kind of my year planned out. And my mother and my mother-in-law are kicking butt. Through this last week or so, I've been praying through it. Me and my sister have talked a little bit. I'm really excited for this year. I feel that mentally it's about the decisions and the calmness that you go through. So I guess I'm going to recommend this. I took 2 weeks to myself. I still answered calls. I still did work. But I took 2 weeks where I tried not to leave the house. And I actually was away from my wife, which meant that, like, I could get really, really good sleep. And it wasn't that we were separated. We were just, it's like if a guy had a cabin or, he went on a golf retreat or, wife went with her sister and they went on a retreat. I think it is great for the soul to just sometimes take a few days, get a hotel room, eat room service, don't do anything, and just rest. So I'm going to tell the men out there that if you are feeling just completely worn out and you feel like the devil is coming for you, I don't care if you have to go take $500-600, go get a hotel room and just stay in that hotel room and eat in the restaurant down below, order pizza in, just take a time out and pray and spend time knowing what the gospel says, that we have to guard our hearts and that we have to lead and that we have to know him. And we just have to be able to be still sometimes because the world is fast. The world's coming for us. And I think even if you do that in deer hunting and strategically place the days that you're going to go out and the strategy that you're going to go for, like if you're already going, like, I felt like I hunted all over the place this year and I just hunted all the ground and I just felt like I was always missing what was happening and you don't have food plots for later on and you don't really know what's going on. Calm that. Just relax and calm that. There are people like me that, yes, for a price, you can get on whitetaillandlife.com and book me for an hour, and we will go over a plan for your property while looking at maps and figuring it out. And then if you want to do something further along, like boots on the ground, then we book that. But I know that I can help you, and just know that there are people out there that can help you get knowledge to have better seasons than you've ever had before, ever. There are a lot of people like, I think the real world group, Wes and Don and some of his crews have been doing consults all over the place, man. I have really wrestled with this. I have 2 deer that I really want to take off my properties that I have. still, I don't really have anybody to hunt them. Me and my friend that hunt them mainly are tagged out. I don't know if I just have my friends kind of generate lease money to go in and try to take out some of these older deer in the next, I think we got 10 days. I don't know what to do. What I think I would really like to do is if we got sponsors to sign up, pretty much partners or sponsors, and I think you know who you are if you're out there, if you're listening. If the opportunity, this opportunity you've been waiting for, I think that if those people got on right now, on with us under contract, and that we were able to promote their products and have them on here and know that they were supporters, I think those are the people that I would want to take over the next 10 days. And we would go out and bond and try to kill these bigger deer. I think those are the partners that I want to have on in the next 10 days to go out after these big deer. That's, I think, the plan. If not, I'm going to kidnap one of my nephews or make my wife go shoot one, but we're going to go kill. We're going to go kill. I might kill some does tonight. What time is it? I might go out and see if I can locate some of these bigger deer. I think so. I think we're going to do it. But I just wanted to come on here, you guys, and say thank you for all the people that reached out while watching the Huntr podcast or listening to it, and that have made Land Life, Chris Brackett's Land Life podcast, a success. I know that this is the mission that I'm supposed to be on, where we talk about a lot of things. Today is kind of just a catch up. I just wanted to kind of tell you guys how Christmas is, how these deer are doing a little bit. And I want to talk about some things, I think this week about what we need to be planning for. And I'm going to give you something to think about. I think you need to be thinking about where you're going to put clover. It's frost seeding time coming up. Like, you could frost seed right now. It's going to come up in the spring. But right now, if you guys got food plots or areas that have grass or any of that stuff, you could literally take your lawnmower out there and mow this grass as low as you can get it. And you could frost seed really good clover, like white gold clover rush, into it at a little bit heavier rate. And next spring, I will tell you the right mix of IMOX to spray on that clover. And you won't have a bit of grass or weeds in it. It will be all clover. And so I know there's a lot of people that just heard that a little bit and said, hey, can you repeat it? Listen to me. Frost seeding is a matter of putting seeds down on the dead earth, like right now in December, right now, January. You put these seeds down and it freezes and thaws, freezes and thaws, freezes and thaws, and that seed gets to the perfect depth. And then come 50-degree weather in the spring, those little baby clovers will pop out of the ground and start growing. Now, at the same time, the cool season grasses will start growing at the same time. But you got to understand how everything works. It's a cold season grass and a cool season clover, and the cool season stuff will grow together. What do you think horse pastures and cattle pastures are? They're clover and grass. So now what we're going to do is we're going to let them both grow up. You're going to get in there and you're going to give it a little mow. This is early spring, and you give it a little mow, and you're going to let the baby keep growing. Now your clover is just going to get bigger, and your grass is going to get taller, and you're going to mow that grass. The clovers are going to catch up to the grass, and the clovers are going to keep coming. And they're going to be pure protein, man, high protein clovers. Big boys are going to be shooting, and they're going to have, instead of, they're going to have grass that are growing with them, and they're going to help them along. And then what we're going to do, you're going to take a four-wheeler sprayer, or you're going to take a handheld sprayer. No real equipment at all involved in this. And you're going to go spray a ratio of about 6 ounces per the acre of a chemical called IMOX, IMOX. I order it online, have it shipped to my house, and I spray IMOX all over what we put the seed down this March, this February. And now your grasses are going to slowly melt like the Wicked Witch of the East, or whatever she was. And they're just going to shrink, and that clover is going to blow up, and the whole thing's going to be clover. And if you've got weeds in it later on, give her another spray about July, and your whole plot is all clover, and it is going to be absolutely perfect. And you're going to say, so it's just this easy to have food plots? And I'm going to say, yes, it's that easy to have food plots. So that is your little tip for right now. Your land life tip is to get ready with the clover. Buy some good clover. You can buy any kind of clover, but down south they use stuff like Pennington seed. I think that's got um I forget what it was called, Freedom blend or whatever, but it's got kind of this little creepy crawly, Durana kind of clover, Durana, and it kind of creeps all over the ground, and it has more stolons per square inch than most clovers do. And I learned that from Ray, the Genesis Wildlife Group food plot maniac. He loves to teach about this stuff. So the stolons, all this stuff can creep and crawl across the ground, which will keep the moisture in the ground, which is great for some folks. Me, up here where we're at, spoiled with Illinois soil, I want this stuff tall, producing lots of tonnage. I'm going to go for the white clovers, the big ladinos. I'm going to go for the alfalfas mixed in with it. Mixing some of that Durana in with some of this might be really drought resistant, but one of my drought resistant areas that I go are, I'm an alfalfa guy. I'm a Roundup ready alfalfa guy in about a half acre area. And if you're looking to kill a big buck in the Midwest in October and you are not hunting over alfalfa, you are crazy. That is their preferred summer and October food is alfalfa. Clover is like a candy. Sometimes it's kind of sweet for them. It's kind of rich for them. They'll eat it in summer. They'll eat it in October. They'll eat it in November. They'll eat it in December. They'll eat it in January. It's a great one to have all the way around, but they don't need a lot of it. I've wanted to be like Lee and Tiff and plant these giant fields full of clover. That did not work for me as well as I'd like it, because it seems like they come out, they get it, it's really rich, they eat it, they move on. And so to me, as I like to centralize that clover in a plot, maybe beans, maybe brassicas, things, but I'll have me a little area, a little kill area that everything likes to come get a little bite of clover, but it's real rich. Have you ever eaten a salad and had a salad full of spinach? Salad full of spinach, man, that's a really rich salad. But that iceberg lettuce, they can eat a lot of it. Tends to be alfalfa is something they can eat a lot of. The clover's really rich, I feel like it's kind of like a spinach salad, really heavy, really rich. And that's what I'm gonna say, get prepared for, boys and girls. Go, if you're out there hunting, think about this when you're out hunting right now in the late season. Y'all are walking up 10-foot, 12-foot ladders to get into these blinds. There's a lot of animals sitting in the woods looking out there, and while you get up into that blind and get out of it. Imagine if you were to put that thing about 4 to 6 foot off the ground instead of 12 to 18 foot off the ground. And you had a nice little, I don't know, standing corn, standing beans, switchgrass, miscanthus, and you had that covering. And you could slip into the back of that blind and slip out of it. If you were in a stand on the side of the timber, instead of climbing all the way up to get in this ladder stand, why are you not crawling in a little blind, turtle blind or something like this that's completely camouflaged, and you creep in the back and you creep out? This is the time that you have to start thinking about, why am I hunting tree stands right now? Why am I not hunting a blind that's made to disappear? Why am I not creeping in the back and creeping out? Can I not shoot a bow out of them? Do I like being out there and being cold? This is where you guys got to really start thinking about your strategies, because most of the stuff, you can look on my Instagram. If you look at Chris Brackett Land Life on Facebook and Instagram, give me a follow, check it out. You're going to see pictures there with bucks eating in the clover and eating in the brassicas, the gold fever. And you're going to see a blind in the background, and then you're going to see a tree stand up above it. And people were like, why would you have a tree stand on the edge of a food plot and then a blind underneath it that disappears, And I really am a big advocate to be able to hunt out in the elements on that beautiful crisp day with the leaves still on and the green clover and the leaves are falling and everything. I like being out and I like being in nature. But when that weather is nasty, or those deer are bedded close, or all the leaves are gone, I have no sense in There's no reason for me to climb 15 or 20 foot up in that tree and then spook the deer on the food plot and get out of that tree and then go back to my truck. I like having a blind that I could take my friend, my nephew, my wife. I could creep in, glass the food plot, wait for him to move off, slip in the back of that blind, and start hunting. Wind in my face. And that evening, right, shooting time's up, and I start hitting the howls. Any kind of coyote sound that you can make or whatever, scare those deer off, just enough to, if you did that in a tree, they'd be like, why is there a coyote in the tree? But if you did that muffled all down into a blind or whatever, even if you banged on the side of the blind, they are way more apt to put up with that kind of noise than watching your big fat butt get out of a tree. And I'm just telling you that it's those kind of just common sense mental things right now and planning for next year that you can start getting away with. You got 2 weeks, man. If I took right now one of my blind turtle blinds that's sitting out here or one of my pop-up blinds that's sitting out here, and I wanted to go get it in the game, I could go out there tomorrow in the middle of the day and either brush it here at the house, put it on trailer and drive it out there if it was frozen enough, or take that blind, put it in there, get a bunch of pine branches and make it disappear. I could slip into that blind and slip out of that blind way easier than my big butt getting up into a tree and getting out of a tree every time I wanted to hunt. And it takes just that kind of effort to kill these bigger deer really, really late in the season, like right now. And then you start using those tactics to early season and the middle of the season and the rut. Like, it's a lot faster for me to run up and dive into a blind turtle blind and shut the door and be ready to hunt in the morning than it is for me to walk in, hook up my stuff at the base of the tree, climb up the tree, pull my stuff up. For me, it's about how can I be a sniper and how can I be efficient? If I can just roll in and jump in the back of this, it looks like a big giant bush. Once I get it all decorated and stuff, I just jump in the back of it, shut the door, I'm ready to hunt. Instead of going all the way in there, climbing 15, 20 foot. So this has always been one of my tactics. I've never been a 360 or a muddy guy, a muddy blind or a redneck blind or a shadow hunter blind. I only got into the blind game because I started taking my wife and people and kids and my nephews to go experience stuff with me. And that's the main reason I got into the blind game. I do not like rednecks. I do not like muddies. I don't like their window systems. I like shadow hunters. I like 360s. I like these ones Seth Burnham has over here in Peoria. But the window systems and the quietness are what it is for me. And I don't like to be off the ground really high. I like to be 2 to 4 to 6 foot off the ground at the most. I can pile stuff up in front of me. I can get in and out of it. And most of the guys I meet that are like the really tall blinds, they're all guys that want to see. I want to see them. I want to see what's going on. Well, you and I are in the woods for the two separate reasons. I want them to walk 60 yards and under in front of my blind that's on the ground, and I'm going to kill them. You want to go to a show where you get to see all that happens, and then you get to get out, and they get to look at you, get out of your blind, and walk away. I don't want those animals to know I exist. I'd rather be in tight quarters, and when they screw up, I kill them instead of sitting up top watching a lot of acreage and chilling. But that is the way I want to hunt, and you can hunt the way you want to hunt. But we are going to start this new mission of teaching the best way to gut deer, teaching the best way to cape deer, why we're going to cape deer, how to hunt deer 101 style. My dream is to make a video series that has to do with straight up teaching the basics, how to pick apart a farm, how to just kill a doe, how to go about, how to just go about field dressing and preparing the meat. And I just want to go back to creating a video series, probably online, maybe turn into books. I don't know how much time we got for stuff. I like selling land too much. I'm going to do a series to where it just talks about the simplicity of how to hunt, how to prepare the deer, what rattling actually means, what grunting, snort wheezing, what all these things mean and where they mean in different states, and walk through it very slow. If you don't want to watch it, you don't have to, but I think there's a lot of people that need it. And that's the direction we're going with this Chris Brackett's Land Life stuff. And if you want to be a supporter, great. Also, I want to talk about actual land for sale. We have a farm we're developing right now. I'm going to call it the Sweet 60. It's around 60 acres in Illinois. It's got some of the most incredible whitetails on it. Very, very, very high number of whitetails. It's set up to perfection. There could be about 20% more that we could do to it. It needs blinds in the perfect location. Really, it's been just about enjoying deer, and it's one of those premier farms. It would be something that we would show you about and tell you more about if you got a hold of me, Chris Brackett. I'm a broker in Illinois. I sell land. I actually have my eye on a couple other properties that are coming up for sale as well. And one that I just saw that went up for sale. And so if you're looking for a property in Illinois, I don't have to just take you to the property that I own or that I'm selling. I can take you and show you other properties that are either for sale by somebody else, or that we can just go for a drive and start looking for farms in certain areas. And we're going to decipher whether you want a really hilly farm or a big ag farm, or in what area of Illinois. And that's why we have so many farms that we've developed over the years, to where you're just getting on like kind of a pre-development type list where you're just keeping up with us and what we're doing. But yeah, it's going to be it's in the high rent district. Like so there's two kinds of farms. You got a farm out there that's still going to be around the I don't know, let's say $4,000 an acre, kind of. That's on the low end of a lot of stuff right now. There's some areas that just aren't really let's say they're away from town. They're hard, maybe they have hard access to get to. Maybe they're a bunch of bottom ground, CREP ground, things like that. Things that are tough are going to be around the $4,000 to $4,500 mark. And then when I talk about high rent ground, I'm talking about this is ground that is the top of the market, but has the top of the market type deer. And we just sold a 70-acre one that we found. And then we went and said, hey, it's the neighborhood you're in. Like, this neighborhood has really high end, good, awesome deer. It's always going to sell for what you buy it for. So you're not going to lose any money, even if you just kept it for a couple of years. You could do improvements by putting a pond or putting a barn doe or something on it. You could do any improvements and you're always going to get your money out of it. That's the stuff that's a little closer to town. That's the stuff that you can go for a steak dinner or hang out. But this particular one is right down the road from my farm, not far from here. It's one of them things to where if you're in my crew, I'm selling you a farm, and we kill a big deer. Like, if you have a farm close, it's like, hey, we're having pizza, some beers, and we're looking at this big booner, that we just killed or whatever, like, come over. That's the appealing thing about being closer to town, more in these high rent districts. Also, what I call high rent districts are places that don't have a lot of turnover. And so they always hold their value really good. So, sometimes you're going to get in the, 50, 60 acres, and you're going to be paying $8,500 an acre to sometimes $10,000 an acre. But a lot of times in these high rent districts, you can have less acreage and shoot bigger deer and see a better quality animal. And so there's a lot to do when it comes to getting with somebody like myself that says, like, hey, I have $500,000 to spend and I want to shoot two really great deer, 5-year-olds a year. Where are you? Show me what are comparable. And I can go show you a place that is, I don't know. I can go show you a place that's 50 acres. That's on the high rent district, but it may be next to a park or next to a non-hunting area, or really, really something spectacular. And kill 2 big deer a year but the top end would probably be 180 to 200. Like this one block that we just bought one in, I know for a fact with my eyeballs, I have put food plots in for people and know the neighbors, that I know that there's a 220 plus animal that I have seen the pictures off the cameras that I've been a part of on the food plots that I've planted, that I know that there's 220-inch deer that are alive right now, that are within a half mile of this property. And that's what we just bought, one of the clients. Then I have other properties that are big pieces of property, but there's a chance that they're going to flood. There's no marketable timber on there. You don't know what Yahoo is leasing next door, or what farmers' grandkids are killing whatever they want, or somebody's poaching, or what. There's a lot less control in some of these cheaper areas, and there's a reason why they're cheaper. But some people were like, I just need more acreage because I have more people that are going to hunt with me. And this other guy's like, it's just me. 10 years from now, I want to sell it for what I bought it for, if not a little bit more. And for 10 years, I want to put into it, and I want to take 2 big deer off of. And those are my guys that are in my wheelhouse. But also, if a guy comes to me and says, I need a bigger piece of property, I want to hunt a bunch of people on it and enjoy it. And one thing in my head that always happens is, I always think about that guy, that my friend Nate Herman, because he's not a big hunter. His kids are turning out to be awesome, good whitetail hunters. But Nate could take it or leave it when it comes to deer. He loves his fish and he loves his humans and people. But when it comes to deer, he'd rather take a nap. And so with him, he always reminds me, Chris, not everybody wants to shoot deer. And that always sticks with me. Some people just want a recreational property, ride 4-wheelers, campfires with their kids, put a pond in. Maybe they want to plant sunflowers or a garden, or they just want to cash rent. They just want someplace to park their money, to just get out and have fun. And we have properties like that as well. There's properties like that I think more people would do and have. And I would love to take them to a couple pieces and say, like, hey, why don't you keep like 40 or 50 of this, and then you could sell this to a hunter with a little bit more of the timber of the rough ground, or you could find an income by leasing it out to just guys wanting to come in for gun season. They could lease it out. So there's lots of ways to figure out land and a move and equity on land, putting in a pond, stocking it with a lot of fish. That's the fastest way to build equity in my opinion. I've got a 12 acres over here that I have listed. That is probably one of the best places to build a house. And it's on the high side. It's like $15,000 an acre, but it's 12 acres that can be split into a couple different home zones. But a guy could hunt there and kill the same deer that I hunt, because it's not far from my house. And they're going to come through. But this is one of them. You don't have to put food plots in. You don't have to do anything. You were to buy it and you were to build a house, or you were to and put a pond in the front, and then it's 12 acres, 175,000. And there are so many giant deer that are coming through here on with all these rubs and stuff that you just don't even overthink it. You just buy it, park your money, build a house if you want. If not, have a place for a campfire, put in a half-acre little pond, probably cost you about $12,000, $14,000 to put the pond in, another 2 or 3 and fish and a dock and a feeder, and plant some trees around it, maybe some switchgrass, put some equity into it. Go drop over the hill and go hunt those big deer, you and your son, in 2 different stands, and hunt them every day, because they're going to come through here. And you guys can kill deer on your own ground. You could put a pond there and have a place to fish, not far from town, high rent district. Kill a big deer every once in a while. Kill a couple deer every year, and have a place to go camp with your kids until one day one of them builds a house on it. Those are properties like that all the time that people kind of, to get your feet wet you can afford $175,000. And a lot of people are like, man, how can you afford that? I'm like, well, because if you went in there and you trimmed the trees and you made the trails and you cleaned up the stuff, and let's say you put another $10,000 or $12,000 in it to make the pond, you just built equity in something that somebody else doesn't have to spend the year doing that with their blood, sweat, and tears. And you sell it for $190,000, $200,000 in a couple of years. But you got to have the cojones to go do it, but you're looking at, even at 8%, 175,000. Let's say you make a bid of 150 and you buy it for 150. You're looking at, I don't know, $1,000 a month. I'm just guessing, $1,000 a month, not high taxes. So can you go make $12,000 to $15,000 extra a year in some other hustle to buy your first property that you're just holding, that you're doing fun stuff to, that you're going to be able to hunt, kill a big deer on? But the main reason for a place like this is you're like, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. Perspective. You go do all that stuff and you pull the old fence down and you get out there on a Sunday with your kids and you're spending time with your kids and you're working the ground. You made a little garden and you did some stuff and pulled some trees and made a bunch of firewood and you did all this stuff that you did with your children. You end up selling that property for pretty much what you got into it. You just did your first piece of property and you had the American dream. And now we go find another one that maybe is, better suited for your build or your hunting or whatever, but you got your feet wet. I am an advocate for things like that, to start making offers on pieces, to just get that first piece under your belt. And again, Chris Brackett, Herman Brothers Realty, a friend, Danny Borland, that he's one of my partners, and we will take you to go look at property. Just sold another one. It was just 20 acres. Guy's going to build a house. We've got it right now developed to where it'd be perfect to put a pond in the middle of this field. This guy's going to build this house and it's beautiful, butts up against all this. We just sold it. Been sitting on the market for 8 months, just sitting there. Guy come in, one guy bid low, back and forth, whatever, just couldn't get there. Another guy came in, said, this place is perfect. I said, hey, here's where we just got to with another guy. If you want it, let's go. And he said, I want it. Let's do it. And so he's got it. He's got income off the farm. He parked some money. That property is not going to go down, folks. It's just not going to go down. That dirt is not going to go down where it's at. And he bought it. He did well. My friend sold it. I made the commission. The guy wants to put the pond in. I'll bid it through Herman Brothers Fisheries. They'll put the pond in. They put the fish in. We got it all right here. Everybody will win. That property is not going to go down in price. And somebody could have taken the back 5 acres, made it into incredible hunting habitat, pulling off of this woods, and then had the rest of this to build a house on in a pond, and it would be perfect. So if you're wanting to develop your vision in whatever state it is, and remember, if you're going to buy in another state, there is no reason to call the realtor direct. Message me, make a call to me, and I will become one with you as a partnership, as a realtor in Illinois and as a consultant with land. And you and I will call my friend in Iowa. We'll call my friend in Illinois, or not Illinois, but Indiana. We'll call my friend in Texas or wherever. I know realtors all over this country, but if you call me first, we can be a team. I'll get a referral from them and I will help you make the right decisions when it comes to getting the right realtor and then finding the right piece of property. And we will go over it and why it's best for you and your needs. That's how I make money. That's my living. And you don't even have to pay me. I can make a referral off the fact that you're going to be buying a piece of property that they already have. You call me, I help you look for the right piece and we buy it together, and I'm with you the whole time and we find the right realtor. So that's what we do at Land Life. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I hope you guys enjoy the new view. We're going to figure out some other camera angles. We get some support, some sponsors involved. We're immediately going to put that money back into this vision of what we got here. There's a couch there. We'll get another camera. We'll get 2 more cameras. We'll get some editing up in here. And, I just think it's great. Shout out to Cubby at Bordeaux Brothers up there in the Northeast. None of this would have been possible without him. He helped me out of my jam, and therefore I went up and did a lot of stuff for him at his shows and did some speaking engagements and stuff up in the Northeast. And yeah, so hopefully he would want to come on and maybe be a sponsor of this and go further with our relationship. And yeah, man, I think there's some great companies out there. White Gold to do something. Man, somebody like a Packer Max. I think Central Illinois Ag or my Kubota dealer. I mean, there's no way that somebody doesn't say, listen, dude, we do a tractor and a side-by-side deal and all the content and everything you have for Facebook and Instagram and on the podcast or whatever. Like, Michael, you're crazy if you don't do something. Travis, you're crazy if you don't do something tractor oriented, four-wheeler oriented, whatever. That's the direction we're going. We need support to keep this thing building and growing where we're going to go. I know God's got it all worked out. And I thank you. I'm looking forward to going and seeing my clients. If you're one of my clients listening that's already got the PDF, the contract, already went over it, already signed and whatever, we've got quite a few for the year right here, from Tulsa to Ohio to Indiana, Wisconsin, things like that. We've got quite a few. But if you're interested in a boots on the ground consult with the online stuff added in, get a hold of me. I think I want to see your property first and see if I can help you. And then we'll go from there. And then you can have the PDF and you can go over all the stuff, and then you can send me the contract if we both think it's advantageous for us to go forward. And we'll get it locked and loaded between pretty much January 14th and into late spring, really. I don't see there any reason to really rush it. I know a lot of people really get crazy about wanting to get it done now. Some of their seasons are already over. But for me, it starts middle of January for me to really leave here. I thought I could get away earlier. I really think that's middle of January through. And if I got to come there, what's really been on my heart is a lot of times I try to fit it in where I'm there for a day or whatever. I really think that if I get to a place, sometimes the properties are so big. Sometimes they're 50, 60 acres and you can get really in depth. It's awesome. Sometimes, man, they're 2, 3, 4, 500 acres. When those happen, really what somebody's getting is the time we're there. Like for sure, a good 8 hours. But sometimes I'm already there and we'll dissect some more, but it is going to be a very comfortable, hey, let's look at setting these traps in your high areas. If you want a bonus and have me stay a couple days and go through the whole giant farm with a fine tooth comb, that's great. But mainly we get there and we dissect as much as we can. And if there's a lot of stuff left over, maybe that's down the road. But you don't have to break the bank to get all intricate with everything on a giant farm. A lot of it is we're going to look for the highest percentage of areas that we can set traps in and look at how the deer flow, how we bring them through those traps. Because on 100 acres, I really only think that you need 3 smoking traps, 3 sets. Like that's it. At the most 6 on 100 acres. Less is more. Perfection with execution is all you need. You don't need a million stands. So I break those properties down into, well, like today, I touched on it a little bit. First thing I did on the computer today was I got on there and I went to the property. I backed out 10,000 feet and I went and I circled 3 different colored areas of big couple 100-acre areas where the deer are going to socialize and feed. And then I said, so if you associate these bigger areas and the areas, you picture the deer going toward them and how they go from one to the other, and then how they flow back into your property, of course, morning and evening. And if those deer are going out to there and they have doe groups, all of them have doe groups, and then all of them have these younger bucks that all socialize around these areas. And then those bigger caliber animals, they kind of just frequent those areas, and then they come back into the thicker, more left alone areas on that 1,000-acre block, let's say. But if you own this 100 over here, How often and how can we make that 100 the preferred area that they go to? Then how can we leave most of that farm alone, 50% of that farm alone, and hunt them on the other 50% without letting them know that we're there? Because everybody believes that all the other deer live on all the neighbors. Everybody believes that all the deer live on the neighbors. None of them want to hold all the deer and then hunt them in these little places. My farms are all set up to where I hold the deer. They may leave, but when they're on my property, that's their. If they're staying in my hotel, where do they got to leave the entrance and exits? And where do they go to the bar or go to the restaurants? Where do they go to the bathroom and they come back? How do they go to the front desk and how they come back? But I want them to live in my hotel. How can I give them everything they need in my hotel and then I just wait for them to mess up? And the deer, it's not if they mess up, it's when they mess up and which deer is going to mess up. And so my goal is to hold as many mature animals as I can, try to take off the ones that are mature that I can, let the other ones feel more comfortable, and then have the best hotel in town for all the deer to want to be there. And then the high end deer will want to be on yours, not the other people that have pressure on them. And that's what we teach. So again, if you don't know what we do, online consults with whitetaillandlife.com. If you want to know about boots on the ground, you go to whitetaillandlife.com, or you can just message me direct and I'll give you my number. You text me, I'll send you a PDF. And man, I just think that there's a lot of people that can benefit for this kind of just straight up knowledge, just walking on the ground. And not every farm is going to be for me to come to. Some of them I know I can help the people, but a lot of them are big timber places that you're able to feed or bait year round. Ohio, Kentucky. Oh, those are the bread and butter. Those are the bread and butter. But the ones that we can go carve out food plots and carve out miscanthus and switch and soft edges and, TSI tree stuff, and how we get and bring those deer up and bring them past blind stands. That's what I love. I'm Chris Brackett. This is Land Life. Man, if you're just searching your heart for where you're at and you're kind of lost, this is what I got to tell you. Find a Bible, King James Version, ESV, NIV. Y'all know about Christmas and you know about baby Jesus being born in a manger to Mary, Joseph, right? We all know that. So what I'm going to tell you right now is for all you lost guys, little broken, little hearing this right now. Find a Bible or go download the Bible Gateway. It's an app on your phone, Bible Gateway. Go click on there. Go to I'll read ESV version, English Standard Version. Go find ESV on there. Set it up to where you go to Matthew 1:18. Matthew 1, Book of Matthew 1:18. That's going to skip over that first part where it starts telling for a guy that's broken and that's like me, that just needs to get in there and find some association with some truth. I would skip over Matthew 1 through 1:17, and it's just going to talk about lineage of who's related to who. So just skip over that. Matthew 1:18, start with there. It's going to talk about the Virgin Mary having Christ and why Christ was there. And then it's going to go through Matthew, and you start reading Matthew. This is the beginning of the New Testament. So when Jesus died for your sins, you're going to need to know this gospel. You're going to need to know why Jesus died for your sins. You just give him your life. Give him a sacrifice of your life on this earth for him because he sacrificed for you. And if you just start at 1:1 or 1:18 in Matthew and you just start reading and you talk to Christ, you talk to God, Yahweh, and you just say, hey, I'm here. I'm listening. I'm broken. Change my life. Things will happen. You made the sacrifice. You made the beginning. You're listening to me right now. Just find it. I don't care what Bible. Every Bible has it. 1:18 Matthew. Start reading, boys and girls. The rest is heaven. This world doesn't matter. I mean, it matters what we do here, but really, we're just really broken people. And don't be fooled by the jelly rolls and the false kind of prophets out there that are teaching that you can ride 2 donkeys with one butt. that you can have your sin and have your heaven too. You will sin, but progressive sanctification will definitely be the fruit of the Spirit, and you will see the fruit in somebody's eyes, and you will see them in how they live, and you will see the fruit. You can't do them both. You can't do them both. I love y'all. I'm Chris Brackett. I'm out of here. Go check us out. Communicate with me on Facebook and Instagram. Chris Brackett's Land Life. Okay. Till next time.